G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is chapter 8 of my What If Naruto Was a Girl series. In the last chapter, we saw Naruto help the Sanjin Cherokee, who then in turn helped protect Konoha from Orochimaru. As a result of this, the third Hokage Hiruzen is still alive, and there was a much lower casualty count. With the Chunin exams postponed until further notice, Jiraiya suggested finding Tsunade in order to heal Lee, inviting Naruto along. However, due to Naruto's close bond with her teammates, Sasuke and Sakura also ended up coming along. This is where the next chapter begins. As Naruto and her team are leaving the village, on the other side two cloaked figures are entering it. As Itachi and Kisame are taking seats in a tea shop, a crow flies into Hiruzen's office. As the third sees the crow, he smiles as a genjutsu takes form. Looking up, he comes face to face with an illusion of Itachi, whom he greets warmly. At Itachi's question as to where Sasuke is, Hiruzen reassures him.
There is no need for you to worry. Sasuke left the village earlier today with his team for a short training trip.
Hearing this, Itachi relaxes before telling Hiruzen what he's learned about the Akatsuki that he joined. After hearing Itachi's report, Hiruzen sighs and comments that he's getting far too old for all of this. To which Itachi, half-jokingly, suggests that he should start looking for a successor. With his report made, Itachi takes his leave, saying that he and his partner had been assigned to try and capture Naruto. As the genjutsu dispels, Hiruzen sighs, knowing that he won't be able to catch Itachi. All he can do is hope that Naruto's friends will be able to protect her from the Akatsuki. Like in canon, Kisame and Itachi are confronted by Asuma and Kurenai. Since Kakashi was already going to the area to look for flowers, it's still possible that he would notice the two suspicious figures. He was an Anbu after all. From there, the battle goes about the same until Itachi attempts to stab Kakashi in the back. Just as Itachi is about to sink his kunai into the back of Kakashi's water clone, he is forced to jump back and away as a series of senbon come flying at him. Emerging from the water, Haku apologizes to his comrades for taking so long to get there, subtly chastising Kakashi for not coming to get him. Kakashi is about to ask how Haku knew that they needed help when Kisame calls over.
Wait, aren't you Zabuza's little pet?
Hello, Kisame. I'd love to catch up, but I'm afraid the ones you were attacking just now are my friends. Don't worry, I promise to make it quick. Haku then turns to Kakashi and tells him that he'll handle Kisame with Azuma, while Kakashi takes on Itachi. Kisame was an old friend of Zabuza's, so it was only right that Haku killed him in his teacher's stead. Sadly, the fight with Kakashi goes the same, so let's focus on Haku's fight. Since Haku was trained by Zabuza and had been in his care when he was still one of the ninja swordsmen, Haku would know all about the other 6 swords and how they work. So he would know all about Samehade being sentient and eating chakra. This means that Haku can't call on his mirror prison, as Samehade would just eat through the chakra sustaining it. While he was never the strongest ninja in the world, this is one fight where physical attacks and skill are going to be needed. After giving Asuma a quick warning about Samehade's abilities, the two begin a tag team attack on Kisame, with Haku trying to pierce the shark-like ninja with senbon while Asuma tries cutting him with his knives. None of their attacks are able to land due to Kisame blocking them with Samehade, but thanks to Haku's speed, neither he nor Asuma are hurt. Haku points out that this was always Kisame's biggest problem. He was strong and could crush cement with his pinky, but he was slow and had the subtlety of a bull in a china shop. This causes Kisame to laugh, surprised that the once quiet kid that would follow Zabuza around like a duckling was capable of smack talk. Just as it looks like the battle is about to be a drawn-out stalemate, a blur of green rushes Kisame with a shout of "Leaf Hurricane!" Kisame is sent skidding across the water while my guy stands beside Haku and Asuma. Thanking the flashy shinobi for his help, Haku quickly rushes over to Kakashi, catching him just before he sinks below the water. Just as Kisame is about to take on Guy, Itachi calls a retreat, saying that they didn't come here to start a war. Besides, they still had work to do. Over with Jiraiya and the Genin, Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura are all talking about what they had learnt during their Chunin exam training. The most obviously excited is Naruto, of course, but Sasuke and Sakura are also enthusiastic. Sasuke really likes the idea of learning summoning, though he would prefer something a little more dignified than a toad. Sakura was interested in learning the water senbone as she did want to learn it during her training with Haku, but had simply run out of time. And Naruto is extremely excited over the idea of learning the Chidori as it was a very flashy and powerful jutsu. Watching the three get in talk and excitedly explain how their jutsus work, Jiraiya can't help but smile. It was extremely rare to find ninjas so willing to share what they learnt with others. The Sanin had been really close back when they were young, but even they didn't share what they knew the way these three now did. For them to be so willing to share all of their secrets with each other, there had to be an insane amount of trust between them. Back over with the Jonin, they have just gotten Kakashi into bed when Haku asks what Itachi and Kisame had even been after. There's a moment of silence while everyone in the room debate whether or not to tell Haku about them being after Naruto. The decision is taken out of their hands, however, as the ninja from Canon barges in. Then, just like Sasuke did in Canon, Haku races out of the room and through the streets, leading to the village's exit. From there, he starts to put all of his training as an assassin to use, quickly catching onto the trail that the Sanin and Genin had left. He had already lost Zabuza. He refused to lose any of his new family. Back over with Jiraiya and the Genin, they have just arrived at the hotel that Jiraiya was planning on them staying at, and, just like in Canon, the beautiful woman catches his eye. Here, however, as he's trying to maintain Naruto's positive image of him, he tells Naruto that he thinks the woman might know something about his old friend before giving her the room key. He tells the three Genin to go up to their room and try to practice the jutsus they had wanted to teach each other. He also tells them not to blow up the room before racing off after the woman, leaving Naruto thoroughly confused. Behind her, Sasuke and Sakura quietly debate if they should actually explain what just happened before deciding against it. Up in their room, Sasuke starts trying to teach Naruto how to summon a Chidori, while Sakura starts practicing the water senbone that she had started forming. While Sakura is able to form something resembling a senbone despite the water not holding its shape well at all, Naruto isn't even able to get any sparks to form. After a few minutes of this, their attention is drawn by a knock at the door. Thinking that it's Jiraiya, Naruto gets up and opens the door, only to be greeted by a pair of Sharingan. Naruto stands there frozen in shocking confusion. Sasuke's story of the massacre of his clan echoes at the back of her mind as she stares up at the man before her. The realization of who he must be dulled to her shocked mind. Itachi. This guy had to be Itachi. She is quickly brought back to reality by Sasuke's voice calling over to her, asking who's at the door. Itachi's eyes flick up to the room for a split second at the sound of Sasuke's voice before fixing on Naruto once again. Of all the teams Sasuke could have gotten on, of course it had to be the same as the Jinchuriki. Swallowing around a nervous lump in her throat, Naruto calls back to her teammates, trying to keep her voice even. Sasuke? Sakura? You wouldn't happen to know a good exterminator, would you? It seems we have a few uninvited guests. Just as Naruto is about to grab one of her kunai, she feels a tug at the back of her jacket, and suddenly she's being pulled back into the room and away from a massive sword being swung at her. Heart racing, Naruto realizes that Sasuke must have broken her out of a genjutsu and thanks her friend for the save. Sasuke just gives a nod, not taking his eyes off the two cloaked men in the doorway. What's wrong, Sasuke? Too worried about your little girlfriend to fight? Sasuke ignores the taunt. Losing his head won't do any good, especially with Naruto and Sakura there. He knew he wasn't strong enough to beat Itachi yet, and he wasn't about to risk his teammates in a stupid attempt. The best shot they had was to retreat and get help. In a voice barely above a whisper, Sasuke asks Naruto if she has any of his smoke bombs. Quickly catching on, Naruto throws several at the door, clouding the men's view before all three Genin jump out of the nearby window. Unfortunately, the smoke doesn't create as much of a diversion as they were hoping, and Itachi and Kisame are hot on their heels. Jumping from roof to roof, the three Genin try to escape their pursuers. Before they get too far from the hotel, Sasuke tells Sakura to find Jiraiya while he and Naruto hold off the missing Nen. Sakura nods, pivots, and drops down between two buildings before doubling back to look for Jiraiya. Just as Kisame is about to go after her, Itachi reminds him that their goal is Naruto. A fight with Asana was not something they needed today. As Sasuke and Naruto enter a nearby forest, Sasuke tells Naruto to create a clone, saying that they'll leave a pair behind to distract the two pursuers. Naruto agrees and creates a clone, while Sasuke does the same. Once Sasuke and Naruto stay behind while the others continue on. What Naruto doesn't know is that the Sasuke with her was the clone, while the real Sasuke stayed behind. His plan was to use himself as a distraction, allowing Naruto to get somewhere safe, but he knew that Naruto would never agree to leave a friend behind, so he had to trick her. They'd used the clone decoy enough times by now that Naruto wouldn't even question Sasuke suggesting it. Unfortunately, while Kisame stops, Itachi does not. Sasuke curses, realizing that Itachi must have been able to see through the shadow clone with his Sharingan. He's about to go after Itachi when Kisame stops him, poofing the clone in the process, telling Sasuke that he won't be going anywhere. Just as the two are about to fight, a series of senbon come flying out of the trees right at Kisame, which he blocks. Jumping down from one of the trees, Haku stands between Sasuke and Kisame. Not taking his eyes off the shark, Haku tells Sasuke to go protect Naruto. Not needing to be told twice, Sasuke runs after Itachi and Naruto. Naruto jumps from tree to tree, trying to keep ahead of the Uchiha chasing her. In her head, she keeps repeating every swear word she knows. The Sasuke clone had been poofed by a shuriken that Itachi had aimed at her and the clone shielded her from. She wanted to go back and help Sasuke, who now must be all alone with that crazy shark. She also wants to throttle him for tricking her into leaving him behind like that. For Kami's sake, they were a team! They were in this together! Just as Naruto is about to land on another branch, a kunai sinks into her leg, causing her to scream in pain and go toppling out of the trees into a small clearing. Just as she's about to hit the hard ground, Sasuke bursts out of the trees, catching her. Glaring at her friend, she tells him that if they make it out of this, she's going to kill him. Shaking his head, Sasuke puts her down so she can pull the kunai out of her leg. Turning to Itachi, the two prepare to fight for their lives. Back over with Kisame and Haku, they are staring each other down, sizing each other up. Haku knows he can't beat Kisame on his own, but he can't just let him hurt Naruto. Kisame, on the other hand, is wondering why Haku is protecting these leaf brats. Last he checked, Haku didn't care about anything but Zabuza. Speaking of, where was Zabuza? More important, where was his sword? Hey Frosty, I forgot to ask earlier. Where's Zabuza? He's gone. Gone? He died some months ago. His sword was buried with him. This is obviously a lie, but Haku isn't about to tell Kisame that he has the sword in one of the scrolls he carries with him. He already has someone to give it to in mind. Just as Kisame is about to demand more information, Sakura arrives with Jiraiya. Seeing the Shark Man, the two ask Haku where Sasuke and Naruto are. Haku explains that he sent Sasuke ahead to help Naruto, who was still being pursued by Kisame's partner. Sighing, Jiraiya realizes that Naruto and Sasuke are going to need to hold out for a little while, because if he just left Haku and Sakura to deal with Kisame, they'd surely be killed. And he wasn't about to have that on his conscience. And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave the story for now. Join me next time as we see the Ninja of the Leaf fight for their lives against two members of the Akatsuki. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.